All right, so you sent in a bunch of articles on the Georgia-Florida game.
Yeah.
Classic rivalry, always a good one. And this year, well,
Yeah.
let's just say the headlines don't tell the whole story. So we're going to deep dive into this one,
Okay.
especially with Georgia at number 2 in the country. You've got some pieces here from The Athletic.
Right.
So let's unpack this and see what we can learn. What do you say?
Sounds good.
Okay, first things first.
Yeah.
Georgia won 34-20.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people are saying it was a lot closer than anyone expected.
Right.
What gives? Was Georgia looking ahead to bigger games, or did Florida just bring their A game?
Well, it's definitely more nuanced than just looking at the score.
Mm.
I mean, think about it. Florida starting quarterback, DJ Lagway.
Right.
You know.
Gatorade National Player of the Year?
Yeah, big recruit. Gatorade National Player of the Year, the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Goes down in the second quarter.
Well,
Huge blow to any team.
yeah.
Let alone one going up against the number 2 team in the country.
Ouch. Yeah, you hate to see a talent like that go down.
Yeah.
Especially so early in his career.
It's tough.
So Florida's playing with their backup.
Yeah.
Did Georgia just kind of let up, figuring they had it in the bag?
Not quite. So Florida was dealing with their own injuries.
Oh, really?
Missing key players on both sides of the ball.
Oh, wow.
But even with all of that, they really went toe-to-toe with Georgia. One of the articles even said, playing the Bulldogs this close was about the best Florida could realistically hope for.
Huh.
And they delivered.
Okay, so that's a big takeaway right there.
Yeah.
Even with a banged-up lineup,
Right.
Florida went punch for punch with a national title contender.
Yeah.
Talk about exceeding expectations, but they still lost. Does this performance change anything for Coach Napier?
Right.
He's kind of been on the hot seat a little bit.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Coming into the season, making a bowl game seemed like the bare minimum to keep his job.
Right.
Now, with Lagway's injury, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah. Tough to judge a coach when he's potentially down to his third-string quarterback. So how does this impact Florida's quarterback situation for the rest of the season? It was already shaky with their Week 1 starter out, and now Lagway's on crutches with a brace.
Yeah, not good. They're down to Aiden Warner,
Okay.
a transfer from Yale who was, believe it or not, a walk-on.
Wow.
He managed the game, didn't completely implode, but only completed 7 of 22 passes for 66 yards.
Oof. That's rough. A walk-on from Yale facing the SEC gauntlet. You gotta admire the kid's guts.
Yeah.
But with Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and then Florida State still on the schedule,
Yeah.
things aren't looking too sunny in Gainesville.
It's going to be an uphill battle for Florida from here on out. Their
Oh.
defense will need to play lights out,
Yeah.
and they'll have to lean heavily on their running backs.
Okay.
Which, thankfully for them, is a position they actually have some depth at.
Okay, so Florida showed grit, but ultimately it's a loss and a tough road ahead. Let's flip the field and talk about Georgia. They got the win, but it sounds like it wasn't exactly pretty. 3 interceptions from Carson Beck. What's the deal there? Didn't he have a fantastic season last year?
He did, and statistically, he's on pace for even more passing yards this year.
Wow.
But those interceptions, especially in close games, are a killer.
Right.
And this wasn't just a one-off thing. This is a trend. He's had multiple interceptions in 4 of his last 5 games last year. 0 multi-interception games.
Yeah, that's a huge difference.
Yeah, something's off.
So what's changed? Is it the new receivers? They did lose some major talent with Brock Bowers and Led McConkey gone.
It's easy to point fingers at that, and sure, losing those guys hurts.
Yeah.
But Beck also played without them for stretches last season and didn't have these turnover issues. There were a few near interceptions and missed open receivers against Florida. This seems to be more about Beck than the guys around him.
Interesting. So is this a cause for concern for Georgia? I mean, they are 7-1, and Beck still put up over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns against Florida. Maybe we're overreacting.
Maybe. But remember, they've got a tough schedule ahead.
Right.
Squeezing out a win against a depleted Florida isn't going to cut it against powerhouses like Ole Miss and Tennessee.
Yeah.
We're talking about a team with national championship aspirations. They need to be better.
All right, so maybe we're seeing a new Georgia this year. A team that wins, but not with the same overwhelming dominance we've come to expect.
I wouldn't say that. They're still incredibly talented.
Right.
But what we might be seeing is a shift from dominance to resilience.
Okay.
They've proven they can grind out wins and overcome deficits like they did against Alabama and Texas this year.
You're right. They don't panic when they're down. Remember that Alabama game?
Yep.
Down 14 points in the third quarter?
Yeah.
And still found a way to win.
Crazy.
That's the kind of resilience we're talking about. And honestly, that might be even more dangerous for their opponents.
That's a great point.
Right.
This Georgia team might not blow everyone out, but they find ways to win.
Mm-hmm.
That makes them a very tough opponent to prepare for.
All right, so we've got Florida exceeding expectations despite adversity, and Georgia racking up wins but showing some cracks in the armor. This is already way more interesting than just looking at the final score. What else can we dig into here?
Well, let's talk about some of the other standout performances from this game, because there were some real gems beyond the quarterbacks.
Okay. I'm all ears. Let's dive in.
You mentioned Florida's run game earlier.
Right.
And, despite the loss and all the QB drama, their running backs really were a bright spot,
Yeah.
especially considering they were without their top two guys.
Wait, seriously, they were missing their starting running backs
Yeah.
and had all that quarterback trouble and still managed to run the ball effectively. Color me impressed.
Right.
Who stepped up for them? Give me some names.
Talk about depth.
Yeah.
Montrell Johnson Jr. and Eugene Wilson III, they're the usual starters, and both are absolute studs, but neither one of them played.
Wow.
Instead, it was Jacoby Jackson who really stepped up. He was a beast out there,
Oh.
showing everyone just how loaded Florida's backfield is.
So Florida's run game is definitely something to watch, even with all the uncertainty at quarterback.
Yeah.
How about Georgia? Anyone besides Beck making big plays on offense?
Georgia's receivers had some clutch moments.
Yeah.
Especially on that game-winning drive in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
Arian Smith came up huge with a 34-yard catch on third down. Then it was Lawson Lucky snagging a 21-yarder to set up the touchdown.
Nice. Some real gutsy plays from those guys. But overall, it doesn't sound like Georgia's offense is firing on all cylinders just yet.
Yeah.
It's still a work in progress, right?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. They have all the pieces. The talent is undeniable.
Right.
But they need to find a rhythm and cut down on those turnovers.
For sure. 3 interceptions in a game just won't cut it against the top dogs in the SEC, let alone if they want to make a run at the national championship.
Right.
Speaking of the SEC, how does this game shake things up for both teams?
Well, for Georgia, a win is a win. And at 7-1,
Mm-hmm.
they're still a major contender for the national title.
For sure.
But as we've been discussing, they need to clean some things up if they want to be taken seriously
Yeah.
as the top dog.
They definitely need to show they can dominate the best teams out there.
Yeah,
Not just squeak by.
right.
What about Florida? What's a realistic goal for them the rest of the way?
It's tough to say, especially with Lagway's injury.
Yeah.
Making a bowl game is still the dream, but it's going to be a long shot.
Yeah.
They've got a brutal schedule ahead.
Right.
And even with that gutsy performance against Georgia, the odds are stacked against them.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that schedule might be more brutal than a medieval torture chamber.
Uh-huh.
So much for moral victories, huh? At the end of the day, it's all about W's and L's.
True, the scoreboard doesn't lie.
Yeah.
But even in a loss, especially one like this, there are valuable lessons to be learned.
Absolutely. You've got to give Florida credit for their resilience and fight. They could have folded after Lagway went down, but they didn't. And sometimes that fighting spirit is just as important as the final score, especially for a program trying to rebuild.
I completely agree. It's about building a culture, developing young players,
Yeah.
and proving that you can compete with anyone, regardless of the circumstances.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Okay, so we've covered the game itself, the key players, the coaches, and even what it all means for both teams moving forward in the SEC. Anything else we should hit before wrapping up this deep dive?
You said something earlier that really stuck with me,
Oh, yeah.
that this game was about more than just the final score.
Right.
And I think that's a crucial point for anyone watching these teams, or really any college football team.
Oh, I like where you're going with this. Tell me more.
It's so easy to get caught up in the wins and losses, the rankings, all the stats.
Mm-hmm.
Those things matter, sure.
Yeah.
But sometimes we lose sight of the human element, the heart of the game.
The passion, the stories behind the players and coaches.
Exactly. And this Georgia-Florida game was a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
You had Florida, battered and bruised, refusing to back down against one of the best teams in the country.
Right.
And Georgia, facing their own demons, having to dig deep and grind out a win. It was a testament to the spirit of competition.
What you're saying is there's always more to the story than what you see on the scoreboard.
Precisely. And that's something we should all remember as we follow these teams in the rest of the college football season.
Mm-hmm.
Look beyond the highlights and the headlines,
Yeah.
and you'll discover something truly special.
That's a powerful message, and I think it applies to so much more than just sports. Sometimes the most compelling stories are the ones that unfold beneath the surface.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes college football so special. These are young athletes, still figuring things out,
Right.
playing with an intensity and passion you don't always see at the professional level.
And it's not just the players, the fans, the traditions, the whole atmosphere.
Right.
It's unlike anything else in sports.
You're right. There's a sense of community, a shared history
Yeah.
that you just don't find in other sports. It's about so much more than just winning or losing.
Well said. I feel like we've officially deep dived this game into oblivion. Any final thoughts for our listener before we sign off?
Yeah, you said it earlier. It's so easy to get caught up in the hype, the rankings,
Yeah.
the race for the playoffs.
Right.
But when you take a step back and look at the big picture,
Yeah.
you realize there's so much more to college football than just who wins and who loses.
Exactly. It's like we get so focused on the destination that we forget to enjoy the journey.
Precisely. And I think that's a shame because the journey's where the real magic happens.
Right.
It's in those moments of adversity, those unexpected triumphs,
Yeah.
those displays of sheer grit and determination that we really connect with these athletes and their stories.
You've given me a whole new perspective on this game
Yeah.
and on college football in general.
I know.
It's not just about the X's and O's. It's about the human element. It's about the passion, the resilience, the unwavering spirit that drives these young men to push themselves beyond their limits.
And it's about the communities that rally around them. The fans, the alumni, the families.
Right.
They all play a part in creating this incredible tapestry of tradition, rivalry, and shared experience.
It's amazing when you think about it.
Yeah.
A single game like this Georgia-Florida matchup.
Right.
It can spark so many conversations, so many different emotions.
Absolutely.
It's more than just a game. It's a microcosm of life itself.
Well said. It's a reminder that sports, at their core,
Yeah.
are about so much more than just the final score.
Yeah.
They're a reflection of our values, our hopes, our dreams. And in the case of college football, they're a testament to the power of community, tradition, and the indomitable spirit of youth.
Wow, I feel like we've just scratched the surface of something truly profound here. Thanks for taking this deep dive with me.
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned so much more than just who won and lost the Georgia-Florida game.
The pleasure was all mine.
Always a joy to explore these topics with you.
Likewise.
And to our listener, thank you for joining us on this journey.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you've gained some new insights and perspectives on this classic rivalry and the world of college football. And hey, if you ever want to deep dive into another topic,
Yeah.
you know where to find us. Keep those articles coming.
Absolutely.